right, here we go. Here we go.
Our business system has continued to provide a better life for our increasing population, in spite of destructive forces which have pounded against our foundation of freedoms with no avail. However, wars, or the threat of wars, interrupt the normal
Wars and
operations
rumors
of
of
our
war.
competitive business system. And may result in government controls which crack essential blocks in our foundation of freedoms. In World War II, wages were controlled. Many workers were frozen to their jobs. Farm prices were controlled. And profits of business were limited. Raw materials were allocated between essential and non-essential business. On Main Street, USA, many of us found less to buy because a good portion of our productive capacity went to the war effort. Prices were fixed, and the available supply of goods was rationed. In war emergencies, we allow government to restrict certain of our freedoms. But we Americans have learned to remove government controls as quickly as possible and to repair the blocks in the foundation of our freedoms to allow our business system to resume its normal operation.
So you could, so that's why I picked this one first, because this one sets the tone for the moment that I'm talking about, that Franz Wolf is talking about. This is the transition from the Second World War, saying, look, you saw what was happening, right? This wasn't good for workers. They were forced to stay at their jobs that they were looking for, jobs that they were being better paid for, jobs that were producing a labor situation where they thought that we might end up with a 25-hour work week. But no, you're wedded to your job. This is terrible. Prices are fixed. We can't make the profit we want to make. This is a horrible nightmare. But our way of life has found the appropriate solution. Not revolution, not redistribution, certainly not the dreaded communism.
While we invest part of our savings to help finance the world's most efficient business system, at the same time we pay taxes to government to finance many kinds of services, which also contribute to our way of life. For example, our taxes must provide the necessary funds to improve and expand our school system. Our taxes must be sufficient to pay for city streets, health, fire, and police protection, and of course, aid to the needy. Our state taxes help pay for highways, educational institutions, and among other things, help to finance important experiments to increase the productivity of our farms. Our federal taxes pay for irrigation and reclamation projects, for national parks, postal services, the Weather Bureau, and many other services. Our taxes have to pay for the enormous cost of past wars and provide the funds for a defense program which will ensure the safety of our country. In addition, all of us should be willing to pay whatever taxes are necessary to enable efficient government to improve or expand any essential service.
And by us, we mean you.
Tax load, we should avoid pressuring government for any new services that aren't absolutely necessary. Because we all know the more our government provides, the more taxes it's forced to collect. None of us can escape. Big business, small business, farmers, workers, housewives, and all of us have to pay our share. Demanding more and more from government could create a tax burden heavy enough to crack essential blocks in the foundation of our business system. Therefore, we shouldn't let our taxes reach a point where they destroy our ability to save and invest. For, as we have seen, our rising standard of living depends upon a constant flow of savings dollars into our business system each year.
Look at that red wave.
In the future of our country, waves of destructive forces will continue to batter against our foundation. When any force weakens the interlocked blocks of our political and economic freedoms, as good citizens, we must be quick to use the tools our Constitution gives us and repair any cracks that may appear. As long as we keep the foundation of our business system strong, we shall be able to maintain and improve the way of life our forefathers conceived and established. A way of life which gave everyone who came to this country the chance to progress according to his ability and enterprise. Like the youth of yesterday, the young people of today deserve the same opportunity to earn success and accomplishment. And on this foundation of freedoms, continue to build a better life for themselves and their fellow man in the world of tomorrow.
Shining city on a hill. So Sutherland, by the way, would have a long career of making stuff. I mean, he worked with, his videos were used in all kinds of major industry, and as we'll see here, the military as well. And as some of you note, I mean, the art looks familiar. It's got literally some of the animators worked with Disney and whoever else, so it has a very popular feel and appeal, and you could see why for certain segments of the population it would be effective. And you could see why to this day, as I'm saying, the talking points end up in my classroom.
America is many things to many people. To a 17-year-old kid, it's the malt shop on the corner. To Grandpa, it's the front porch in the cool of the evening. To Mother and her family, it's church on Sunday morning. And to Dad, it's his favorite relaxation.
Yeah, I think a lot of us.
It's the Cracker Barrel philosophers in Crabtree Corners. And it's the tycoons in Wall Street. It's all races, creeds, and religions. It's freedom to work at the job you like. Freedom of speech and to peaceably assemble. Freedom to own property. Security from unlawful search or seizure.
What you want, Flatfoot?
The right to a speedy and public trial. Protection against cruel punishments and excessive fines.
I don't even get that.
The right to vote. And to worship God in your own way. It is these freedoms that have made America strong.
Okay, so we got our freedom. But management's lousing up everything.
Labor is at fault. It's ruining the country. My constituents, as your elected representative, I can assure you Labor's right. Management's right. I'm strictly neutral.
Labor, management, politicians, phooey. They can't tell corn from oats.
Wait, only take the money out of it.
Hurry, step right up, folks. Here's the answer to your problems. Dr. Utopia's sensational new discovery, ism. Ism will cure any ailment of the body politic. It's terrific. It's tremendous. Once you swallow the contents of this bottle, you'll have the bountiful benefit of higher wages, shorter hours, and security. Enormous profits, no strikes. Remember, you're the big boss. Government control, no worry about votes. Name your own salary. Bigger crops, lower cost. Why, ism even makes the weather perfect every day. And now then, because we are introducing this amazing item for the first time in this country, it isn't going to cost you 1 cent. All you have to do is sign this little scrap of paper, and you get your bottle absolutely free.
I hereby turn over to ISM Incorporated everything I have, including my freedom and the freedom of my children and my children's children, in return for which said ISM promises to take care of me forever.
Pardon me. Pardon me.
And who are you, my good man?
I'm John Q. Public.
Ah, my fine friend, you're just in time to share this generous and gigantic offer.
No, they mean
I like
communism.
Mind if I read it first?
Hurry up! I know let me see.
Come here
first. Let me
Keep your shirts on, boys. Including my freedom. Freedom? What? Sign away my freedom? Why, this is ridiculous.
Don't be corny, brother.
Sure, our system of free enterprise isn't perfect. But before we throw it away for some imported double talk, let's turn the clock back a few years to see what it's done for us. For example, back in the 1890s, Joe Dokes was just a guy who liked to tinker around his barn. Some people thought Joe was lazy. Some even thought he was nuts. But one day, he had an idea. And because he was free to dream,
Imported double talk.
Joe had a chance to make something of himself and his idea. So, of course, some people didn't think so much of Joe's idea. But that didn't stop him. So Joe got some money from young Aunt Minnie and Uncle Angus and Grandpappy and Mr. Titus.
And everybody has this access.
When Joe's friends and
start up
relatives
capital.
used their savings to help him buy tools and property, they were capitalists. Don't blush, folks. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Now, naturally, Joe needed some help. So he hired Willie Lumpkin, who was out of work anyway, and before long, Willie had the know-how and became skilled labor. Because capital, management, and labor worked together, Joe's idea grew. It grew and did things even he never dreamed of. Today, the automobile industry provides millions of jobs that never existed before. And remember, this is a story of only one industry. There are thousands more scattered all over the United States whose history of development is pretty much the same. We've built a country under the American system that sends more young people to high school and college than all the rest of the world combined. Why, even in the Depression, our wages bought more food, clothing, travel, and entertainment than the wages of any other people in the world.
Buying power.
Our country has a national income equal to the total national incomes of any other sixth nation in the world. With only 7% of the Earth's people, we drive 70% of the world's automobiles. That's just a sample of the things the capitalistic system has given us in only 160 years. Before signing up, you boys ought to try a little taste of Dr. Ism's formula to see what you'd get in exchange for your freedom. Go ahead, try it.
You can't do this to me! I'll strike!
The state forbids strikes.
Wait till the union hears about this!
Ah, yes, the union. Welcome to our ranks, number 1313.
I'll take this case to the Supreme Court.
The state is the Supreme Court. Our decision is as follows. No No more private property. No more you.
Wow.
Well, the farm folk will put a stop to this.
Farmers don't vote anymore.
What'll I do for seed next year?
You won't have to worry about next year. The state will do your planning from now on.
We don't have farming subsidies.
We must fight to regain our freedom, or everything is lost. Everything.
Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine.
When anybody preaches disunity, tries to pit one of us against the other through class warfare, race hatred, or religious intolerance, you know that person seeks to rob us of our freedom and destroy our very lives. And we know what to do about it.
And now, gentlemen, no violence, please. And don't throw those bottles. Don't throw those bottles.
Working together to produce an ever greater abundance of material and spiritual values for all. That is the secret of American prosperity.
So I'm going to make sure when we watch the next one that you see, because I don't think it showed up very clearly, maybe it wasn't on this one, but where you can see, okay, so this one was a product of Harding College. And, but these next ones, but the propaganda, I mean, the messaging was clear. This communism stuff is just going to destroy everything. And it's going to take away your freedom. And we hear the same arguments today about it's the radicals. And by the way, Harding College is a Christian liberal arts college. I forgot to mention that point, in Searcy, Arkansas. And it was founded in 1924 to, be a Christian college. So there was, and by the way, Franz Wolf talks about this. This is another part of the book. So she talks about how the messaging was carried out. And that is the post-World War II capitalist message. And so much of it went through education, it went through obviously media, propaganda, it went through, it was funneled through military promotion, so on and so forth. But a good chunk of it was funneled through the conservative church, which was itself already organized as a funnel for this narrative. And again, attaching godliness to capitalism was part of so it makes perfect sense that a Harding College would have been involved, just as is in these next ones, I believe, or one of these, the Air Force, the Chamber of Commerce, who was obviously involved in terms of my own focus with John H. Johnson and the promotion of the Selling the Negro documentary, promoting Black capitalism as a post-World War solution to any leftover problems. So don't get into the race stuff. Don't get into that class division stuff. That's class warfare. That's the race card. That's all that. That's identity politics. That's, don't do that, because all you need is some good business and American capitalism. So, all right, let's look at, speaking of buying power, the buying power of the American worker, another Harding College, John Sutherland production.
Meet Joe,
the king of the workers of the world.
Hi, folks.
Joe's the king because he can buy more with his wages than any other worker on the globe.
Message!
Now, what makes it possible for Joe to earn such a good living? He's no smarter than workers in other countries.
Are you kidding?
He's no stronger than workers in other lands.
Oh, yeah? Well, just watch me.
Just because Joe's an American doesn't mean...
Yeah? Well, being an American is the best thing in the... Oh! My back!
Sure, being an American is great, but how could you be superior to any foreigner when you or your folks might be any one of a dozen different races or religions? So, if you're no Superman, it must be the American way of doing things that makes you the luckiest guy in the world.
I don't think I'm so lucky.
You don't? Well, let me show you.
Hey, what's that gadget? Television?
No, it's a time machine. Just pull that lever. You'll see how people worked 100 years ago.
Hey, this I like.
Oh, that's too far back. Try again. We want to stop at 1850.
Who's the character?
That's your grandfather, Joe.
Oh.
He had to work 69 hours a week to earn a living because he had only inexpensive hand tools and his own strength to help him make things. Your grandfather was a powerful man, yet his strength equaled only 1/10 of a horsepower. You have hundreds of horsepower in this costly giant of a machine to multiply your strength and efficiency 1,000 times. This makes it possible for you to earn more than any worker in history. And still have leisure time each day to enjoy life.
So I'm lucky. But what about the rich guy who does nothing while I do the work?
True, there are rich people who contribute nothing. And there are poor people who contribute the same.
Yeah, see?
But most of the invested capital that buys the tools you use comes from your fellow Americans. 40 million of us have money in the banks. 70 million of us own insurance policies. Over 15 million of dollars to create new plants and equipment. This invested capital buys the tools which make a man's labor worth more because he produces more. In China, for example, where there is practically no capital available for investment in plants or tools, a man's labor is not worth very much. A coolie takes 10 days to move 10 gallons of kerosene 100 miles at a freight cost of 10 cents a gallon. An American railroad worker takes only 2 hours to move 100,000 gallons of kerosene 100 miles at a...
And so and we catch that, right? So there, even though there are a few lazy rich people, there's a bunch of lazy poor people, but it's the venture capitalists that make the difference in the end. So it's the lazy rich person getting fanned doing nothing, ultimately, without it being directly pointed to here, is the one driving all of this, making it better for the worker. So the absence of capital, the absence of capitalism is still the problem for the coolie and any other so-called unfortunate worker elsewhere in the world.
At a freight cost of 1 cent a gallon. The coolie makes 10 cents a day. An average American railroad worker makes $10 a day, or 100 times more than the coolie. The average railroad worker has the benefit of a $20,000 investment in equipment. The Chinese coolie's equipment is worth only 10 cents. With constant improvement in expensive tools and the skill to use them, the value of any man's labor can be multiplied many times. Naturally, the people in this country who invest their savings with industry expect dividends. No dividends, no investments. Without new capital each year to finance new plants, tools, and equipment, labor and management would soon find themselves in pretty bad shape.
Yeah, without capital to buy new tools, I might not do so good. But look what a new invention did to my grandpa. For 25 years, he knocks his brains out in the wagon works. Then along comes the gas company. Need I tell you what happened to Grandpop?
The history of our country proves that new inventions create thousands of jobs for everyone they displace.
That's
So
wild.
it wasn't long before your grandfather had a better job, had more pay for less work. Our industrial progress is largely the result of the competitive struggle between companies to capture the search proves successful. Everyone shares in the accomplishment. The business which fails to give the consumer as much value as a competitor gives often goes bankrupt. However, on a national scale, competition gives the greatest good to the greatest number by continually producing more and better goods at lower prices. The American way of doing things makes it possible for more people to own their own homes. We're only 7% of the world's population, but we have 50% of the radios. We have 54% of the world's telephones. Americans own practically all the refrigerators in existence. To give them plenty of ice, quickly and easily. Bathtubs, we've got 92% of them. Most of us have the leisure time to enjoy the peace and quiet of the beautiful countryside. As we drive about in 72% of the world's automobiles.
How they made that a positive, though.
Will continue to be the king of the workers of the world.
You said it, brother.
Wow. King of the workers of the world. I mean, that is just, all right. So we'll look at one more, but again, I made a day or two of it watching the whole set of these. I think one or two of them repeat in the video linked in the show description, but they are I don't know. It's what is it? The quintessential, the cliche of the car wreck you can't turn away from. And I was just trying to make sure that I found an example of because I was using screenshots of this to do a thumbnail where they talk about, where they show which ones are, or they show you that they're coming out of the Air Force in particular, and the Chamber of Commerce, and one or another corporation, but you get the gist, and you'll get the gist. So we'll watch one more, which is again speaks to, as I mentioned at the beginning, what's happening right now. This is another one from Harding College, but but it's all for the exact same purpose. Why play leapfrog? Prices and wages.
wages and prices often play leapfrog. One jumps up, then the other, which means a steady rise in our cost of living. The Dilly Doll Factory is a happy shop. But Joe, our doll painter friend, seems to be a little down in the mouth, which even shows in his work. Joe is pretty discouraged because the high cost of living makes it harder and harder to make ends meet.
Hiya, Joe, old boy.
Hello.
Better look in that envelope.
Wow, a raise! And just in time to buy the kid a birthday present. What'll I get? Let's see. A dress? Bicycle? Roller skates? Shoes? A book? A doll? A doll! What's the price, miss? I work in a factory that makes this doll. $2 is too much.
I'm very sorry, sir, but your company charged us more for this shipment, so we had to raise our selling price.
We got a wage increase, all right, but it couldn't raise the price that much. It just takes a little wood, rubber, paint, cloth, and a phony wig to make that doll. There's only about 10 cents worth of materials in the whole thing. You pirates, crooks, bandits, you robbers!
You're right about the cost of raw materials in that doll, about 10 cents worth. Raw materials in practically everything we buy are worth little until labor transforms them into finished products. For example, how much do you think the raw materials cost in that car?
Oh, about $300.
You've got a surprise coming. It takes 4.5 tons of coal, 2 3/4 tons of iron ore, 50 pounds of cotton, 14 pounds of cured and finished wool, aluminum, zinc, lead, copper, and countless other raw materials to make
where
an
do those
automobile.
raw materials come from?
Without the addition of labor costs, these things are worth about $22. The raw materials require the accumulated labor of thousands of people in countless crafts to transform them into a finished automobile. Miners dig the coal and iron ore. Railroad and maritime workers transport these materials to the steel mill, where workers convert the ore into finished steel. The wages of railroad workers add to the value of steel when it is transported to automobile factories. The cotton that goes into a car accumulates labor costs from the farmer who tills the soil, from workers who sow the seed, and help to raise the cotton. Wages paid to other workers add to the value of the cotton as it is moved from the field to the cotton gin, where it is processed. Other workers transport the cotton to the automobile factory. The wool that is used to make a car is worth little while it is still on the sheep. When the labor cost of a sheep shearer is added, the value of the wool is increased by his wages. When all of the parts and materials finally reach the factory for assembly, the labor cost of automobile workers must be added to the price of the car. In the $1,500 automobile, direct and indirect labor costs add up to approximately $1,200, or over 80% of the selling price. That's before taxes. And what happens to the other 20% or $300? Raw material cost, $22. Profit to producers of raw materials and allied industries, $89. Profit to part manufacturers, $47. Profit to local dealer, $77. Profit to car manufacturer, $65. Now, when you add $400 for taxes, the cost is $1,900 to the buyer. Like the dolls you make, an automobile has a low raw material cost and a high labor cost, and that goes for practically everything we buy.
Oh, yeah? Well, what's the labor cost in a buck's worth of steak?
We'll start back at the farm where Bully Boy was raised. The selling price of meat has to include the labor cost in producing the feed, in building fences, and constructing housing for our animal friend. It takes a lot of costly care to get Bully Boy ready for the market. Wages have to be paid to railroad workers who provide our friend with care and courtesy on his way to the stockyards. Preparing Bully Boy's anatomy for the butcher shop costs money, too. The family butcher figures in his wages every time he sells a thick, juicy steak. Forgetting taxes for a moment, the labor cost in a dollar's worth of meat adds up like this. Workers raising beef, 24 cents. Transportation workers, 1/2 cent. Packing house workers, 42 cents. Meat delivery drivers, 1/2 cent. Butcher shop workers, 18 cents. The other 15 cents goes in profits to the retailers, the packers, allied industries, and to the farmers and ranchers. Most of the things we buy accumulate direct and indirect labor costs that add up to 85% of the selling price before taxes are added. Generally speaking, a wage raise means a corresponding rise in prices, unless productivity is increased proportionately.
What do you want, a guy with 4 arms? 4 arms? Say, I got a sensational idea.
To expand productivity, labor and management must work together to develop new ideas and techniques. To expand productivity, capital must finance the creation of more efficient tools and plants. The production of more and better goods at lower costs means that when you get a wage raise, it's a real raise.
A raise? A raise! I want to buy a doll. How much?
Now you've got a real wage raise.
Wow.
Because you can buy more with what you earn. With increased productivity, wages can keep ahead of prices.
So just quickly, a little bit more about the producer here. Sutherland, born in 1910, he actually worked for Disney and was an assistant director on the 1942 Bambi film. So that's a very direct connection, and one reason why the skill and the production quality is what it is and is as effective as it was. He ended up doing work for, there was a question about who was funding this. This one came out of Harding College, which was again that conservative Christian college that was part of what Fons Wolf talks about as the one of the main outlets and mechanisms for spreading the gospel of capital. But it says here, where did it go? Just some of the Sloan Foundation. Okay, here we go. General Electric, United Fruit, American Telephone and Telegraph. I mean, these, of course, this is Dulles and the CIA. DuPont Motors, the New York Stock Exchange. You know, that he did work for all of them. And as I said, if you look at the link in the show description, you'll see that some of the videos that he produced with the same message were sponsored by the Air Force, the Chamber of Commerce, and ultimately, either directly or indirectly, in association with what Franz Wolf talks about, the National Association of Manufacturers, who today are still active in producing a lot of the PR for the business community.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.